Can you hear me? Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, once again. Thank you for joining us this evening for another interesting episode of Byte and Bedside. And I've got a wonderful guest today, and she will be introducing herself um, later on. Before I carry on, I just want to just a bit of a quick housekeeping. Can you all see my slides? Can you all see it? Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. So this session will be recorded, all right? And please make sure you are muted unless you're asking a question. And if you like to keep your camera on, yeah, that's absolutely fine. But just make sure there's nothing in the frame to that might distract others. And if it's possible, use your real name in the Zoom so that we can not address you as iPhone or iPhone 2. And then there'll be lots of opportunity to ask questions at the end. Okay, so before we go into the main bit of this webinar, I just want to share my own frame of thoughts and the reason why I started this webinar. The first one for me is the fact that digital is the how and not the why. Now, I'm not the original author of this code. I literally stole it for someone. Um, so I think it's just this point is just leading to say that regardless of all the shiny innovation that we have in the trust and where we work, what is the most important is that human connection with our patient. Our patient is still the most important factor, and nothing can replace that. And the next point for me is we're more than our titles, whether there's a digital in my name, in my job title or not. Whether there's a specialist in my job title or not, we are more than our job titles. And sometimes I hear nurses say, I'm just a nurse. And anytime I hear that, I feel like just banging the table. We're not just nurses. Um, we're in a very unique place where we can advocate for our patients, specifically when it comes to due to innovations, where we can raise concerns when it comes to any issue around due to innovation that you're not comfortable with. So we're in the best position. So we're not just nurses. And the last bit for me is that collaboration is a new leverage. So whether you are trying to launch a career in digital health, whether you are trying to set up a new you're looking at prototyping something in digital innovation, we need a collective, we need collaboration. So we can't work in isolation. And that's one of the reasons why I set up this webinar. And the another reason for this webinar is the fact that as you can see, I've got this data from Professor ChatGPT. So it's the projected growth of digital health proficiency. As you can see, the graph is climbing every year. So and the reason is there'll be more digital innovations out there, and it won't be just enough to understand the clinical pathways or the pathophysiologies or the disease process. It will be necessary for us to top that with a digital skill so that we can efficiently deliver the care for our patients. And I'm just going to rush through this. Another why is that it's part of our code, the code of an NMC code, yeah, which is what the code that governs how we practice the care we deliver. It's about preserving safety, and that's part of our role. And if you're a nurse educator in the room, you might be very familiar with the future nurse proficiencies that are being understanding, demonstrating the numeracy, literacy, and digital skills is part of what we need to ensure safe and effective nursing practice. And okay, now to the main reason why we are here. I'm not going to read off the information you have on the slide. I'm not going to read it out. I would just allow our guests to introduce ourselves. So, ladies is there any gentleman on the call? No. So, ladies and ladies, please welcome Lorna Corey, an emergency department nurse from Northampton General Hospital. Lorna, it's good to have you with us today.
Thank you for inviting me along, and thanks everyone who's come along this evening to listen. So yeah, as Tomileo said, my name's Lorna. I'm an emergency department nurse. I've been a registered nurse for about 15 years, and in the last 2 to 3 years, moved more into the digital world. So reflecting a little bit on what Tomileo said at the beginning, that we're more than our job titles. So I don't have a job title that actually reflects what I do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, my role of staff nurse doesn't really reflect the fact that I do work full time now on digital and data projects within the emergency department at Northampton General. And that's been kind of a gradual thing over the last couple of years as the demand for it has increased. And very lucky that have very supportive senior leadership team within the department that that recognise the need for it and are happy to kind of support my development into that role. Yeah, it's just been a gradual thing, really. No sort of, this is when I definitely started doing this. It's yeah, been frustrated by inefficiencies, not just with digital systems, but just processes and clinical workflows in general. And I think that's always driven me to want to innovate and look for better ways to do things. And a few years ago, the trust started a Digital Champions initiative, which I joined up to. So that gave me another opportunity to get a bit more involved. But yeah, it's not been until recently that I've been able to have more involvement in digital and data projects. So yeah, like the last 3 years, I think it is. There's been a lot of kind of digital transformation going on at the organisation, and it has kind of identified this real need for clinicians and everyone to kind of work in the digital transformation arena. And I guess I'm fairly different in that I work within a clinical team in a clinical department still. I'm not part of a digital clinical team as such that works directly within a digital department. And I think that that's something that a lot of organisations should look at, because I think it kind of keeps you kind of being within it. You're still kind of keeping that knowledge of what's happening on the ground, really. And so when these projects start and you get involved, you've still kind of got that first-hand experience of what it's like as an end user as well for these things. So I started getting more involved in all of that about 3 years ago, and then saw the opportunity for the Topol Digital Fellowship and thought that looked like a great opportunity to get some, I guess, experience and knowledge about digital transformation. Because I wasn't working directly within a digital team, I've sort of had to seek out learning opportunities for myself, really. So that was kind of the first opportunity that came along, and I completed that. That was throughout 2023, and then completed that April 2024. And then, you have to keep going. There always has to be, there's always, new innovations and new things happening, and you want to stay on top of things. So the next thing that I've gone into is a data technician apprenticeship. So kind of getting that data literacy and just the knowledge and understanding of data and what to do with it, really, and how to make sense of it and turn it into knowledge, because I feel that that's another important aspect of not just digital transformation, but just healthcare in general, really. Being able to look at a data set or have a quality improvement project or something like that, and you want to be able to measure what you've done, or even just identify an issue and try and pick apart, you know, where problems are maybe. So that's where I'm at the moment, with things. So yeah, keeping myself busy.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I like what you said about looking for learning and development opportunities. And I think that was what led you to finding the Topo Fellowship, right? Tell us a bit more about that Topo Fellowship and how did you apply and what have you learned from it so far?
So yeah, so the Top All Fellowships, an NHS Digital Academy program, and I think I found out about it just through subscribing to their newsletter updates, and it landed in my inbox one day, and I just thought, oh, I'll have a look at that. Had a look at previous cohorts, started to have a little bit of doubt set in, because when you look at the previous fellows, I didn't see, I saw nurses, but I didn't see staff nurses. And so I kind of thought, oh, I don't know if this is for me or not, but, I've got an idea, and, I think I could make something good out of it. And, the funding would be great for the department. So went ahead and applied, not really expecting to get very far. Got an interview. Again, wasn't really expecting to get very far with that, but yeah, got accepted onto the program. And the program focuses on kind of supporting you through. So it's an educational program. It's not a sort of formal qualification, but it will support you through the design and delivery of a digital transformation project. So the idea is that you have some funding and you can spend that however you want. I think it's £15,000. You can spend that however you want, on whatever's needed really to make a success of the project. And throughout that, they have workshops around agile project management, user centered design. So you're sort of being mentored through it. So that was really good for me, as I say, because I don't work within a digital team. I didn't have that direct mentorship, although there are people at my organisation that do. They're a great source of support. They're not kind of my day to day colleagues that I can seek that sort of support from. So to get that experience for myself has been fantastic and opened my eyes up to everything. We talk about kind of being that link between, as nurses, that link to digital teams to provide them with our insight. But I got a lot of insight around how digital projects work, and you sort of end up with a better understanding of some of the things that the technical teams sometimes come across, and getting into things like procurement and clinical safety sign off and things that worlds that I'd never even gone into before. So yeah, and the networking opportunities that have come out of it as well have been really good. So yeah, sort of lost track of where I've got with the question, but
Oh, that's
yeah.
fine. That's absolutely fine. You shared about that you couldn't find so many nurses from the previous course and that made
Mm.
you think, oh, is this for me? Can you tell us more about why I, I'm just trying to frame the question. Why do you think nurses sometimes we don't find ourselves or we don't tend to put ourselves forward for that kind of like fellowship?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can only speak from my own, I guess, kind of perspective, but I think sometimes there's always that thought of, well, my idea is not good enough, or I'm not clever enough, I'm not academic enough, and but actually, those of us, that have that lived experience of, working in a particular setting, or like myself with the emergency department, we're the ones that kind of see it firsthand. So actually, our ideas probably are great, and it's a shame, I guess, if more nurses don't go for that because of that mindset. So I guess if anyone listening is thinking, in the same way, I would say, don't let that hold you back. Having been on the other side of it for the shortlisting and interviewing for the Topple Fellowship Cohort 5. So really what they're looking for is enthusiasm and knowledge about whatever the project idea is that you have. It doesn't have to be, some big complicated AI project. It could be something as simple as, just draw an example from one of my fellows from Cohort 4. Their project idea was just to implement a digital whiteboard, which could seem quite simple, but the impact it would have had on their clinical area was huge. The efficiency savings and things like that. So I think if you've got something in mind that you're passionate about and you're really knowledgeable about, and it's going to make a difference, it probably is a really good idea, and you shouldn't shy away from trying to make it happen.
Fantastic. Thank you. I like what you said. The summary of everything in my head would be sound like, don't get overwhelmed with the imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is real. Yeah. Don't sit with imposter syndrome. If we are in the best position as nurses to bring those ideas from the shop floor to to where it's been innovated and developed. So get rid of imposter syndrome, and we are in the best place for that. So Topple Fellowship has not sponsored this webinar in any way, but
yeah, sound like I'm trying to sell it to everybody, but there's lots of other, there's the Shiri Network do a fellowship, there's Florence Nightingale, they do fellowships as well. So that would be the case for any of the fellowships that are out there. Don't be afraid to just go for it, basically.
Absolutely. And I'll be sharing some links after this in the newsletter that will go with the recordings of this webinar. So it's not just about Topple Fellowship. I think it's really anything that has to do with digital. We tend to talk ourselves down as nurses, like you said. So from what I can hear from you now, it's just go for it. We are in the best place to innovate, to bring those ideas forward. Thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate that. So, from the Topple Fellowship, can you tell us a bit more about what you're working on at the moment? What came out of the Topple Fellowship and what you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, so I started the fellowship it was more of an idea. I haven't started a project. It was just based on my experience. I'd sort of recognised there was an issue with communication in the department, particularly around foreign languages. And that could sometimes create inefficiencies in the flow of patients through the emergency department just because of delays with having to get interpreters on the telephone or get them in person, things like that. So when I applied for the fellowship, what I'd had in mind, and I was quite naive, I think, in assuming this, is that the technology would be there. So I'd wanted to look at AI technology. So speech recognition, natural language processing, and things like that. I thought there's bound to be something out there that will let me just have a back and forth conversation with a patient that we can just talk into and hear each other in real time. And that technology is there. It does exist, but not for a healthcare application. So I'm sure it will get there eventually. But I think the problem at the minute with AI and kind of healthcare data, particularly when it comes to things like machine translation, is that the algorithms can only learn from the data that they have available to them. And obviously the big problem with healthcare and the conversations that are had in healthcare settings is that they're confidential, and you can't, there's a lot of things to consider about, putting that data into to train an algorithm. So, I think that's probably one of the biggest kind of barriers, that technology getting to where I thought it was going to be. But I think there's definitely a want for it. So in my initial research, a lot of my colleagues had said that they use Google Translate and other kind of machine translation tools. So there is an appreciation for that kind of instant translation there and then. But there wasn't anything like what I was expecting out there. So I kind of tried to understand really, what the barriers were at the minute, because I think sometimes with digital transformation, we're always wanting to look for like a new exciting tool, but sometimes it's just about making best use of what we've already got. So kind of trying to understand some of the issues that people had around the telephone interpreting service and whether there was anything I could do to make that better. So they highlight things like not being able to find a conference phone they could use it on a quiet area. Felt it was impersonal. So ended up looking at utilising the mobile app that our service provider uses and providing iPads so that video calls could be utilised. Staff then didn't feel like they had to use their own phone. But the main thing that came out of that was that sometimes they just wanted to ask a patient a quick question like, are you in pain? Are you hungry? And it can be a bit cost prohibitive or just unnecessary to have to ring an interpreter every time you just want to ask about basic care needs. So my research took me to a mobile and web app called Card Medic, which I know is operational in several trusts across the UK. So there may be some of you that are familiar with it already, but that's essentially a library of pre-translated flashcards. So you've got that confidence behind it that you know what you're saying to the patient. And obviously it has limitations, like it can't replace a back and forth conversation. And I think that's where the want comes from for machine translation to sort of catch up with things a little bit and get the accuracy levels where they need to be for use in healthcare, but also for the other issues around confidential data. And we don't just want to be having confidential conversations into Google Translate because Google is getting all of that data then, aren't they? It's not a confidential conversation anymore. So there is a demand for a solution that's convenient, because I think the main thing is in ED with my colleagues is they just want something that's convenient and won't take much time to arrange, I suppose. So that's kind of where that's taken me. So I'm still kind of in a pilot phase with that at the moment. That's going to end in the next 2 months, and then it'll be time to review and kind of see if it was a success, and where we go from there. I don't know, but
yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. And I like how you started. You started by saying you recognize that there was a problem, all right? You recognize that there was a problem, and then from there, that took you into thinking about what is out there, what is possible, and what do we have at the moment. So I like how you've I like how you've talked about it. It's first of all recognizing the problem, and the problems you recognize is not the problem in another world. It's a problem right where you are, because you have a lived experience of, you understand that problem thoroughly in and out, and then you look into what is possible, and then you also ask yourself, what do we have now? What are we doing now? And that led you into finding Card Medic and all of that. I think it's brilliant sharing that, because sometimes as nurses we think, oh, that's solving that problem is another person's problem, and then we lose the opportunity of the fact that we understand that pain, we know that pain points in and out, and that gives us leverage over any other person to talk about it and to even search for not just a solution, but maybe something that can be done about it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And in the process of looking at this problem, you encounter that there's a lot of there's lots of data privacy, confidentiality, and security issue that that didn't make the process that you have to deal with along the line. And then you are now in your pilot phase. For those who don't understand what pilot phase is, can you talk through what is involved in a pilot phase?
So trial period, I guess. So
Okay.
the trial is for 6 months. So obviously because there's a cost involved in any service that you have, and the funding that I got from Topol is not endless. So the idea is to trial the app for 6 months, and that's where my funding went for the project, and then to gather enough, kind of evidence, I suppose, to support that it worked and it was useful, and have something to then put forward to the decision makers, the budget holders, to say, look, this has made a difference, and I think your return on investment will be this, and yeah, so yeah, it's just kind of a test really, and the outcome is hopefully that I will have something to show for it that demonstrates that it's needed, and yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's about testing and providing evidence that this will work. I guess it's not just about going around to say, oh, I think it's going to work. I think anyone that wants to throw their weight behind any plan want to see evidence on paper to say, I've tried it for a couple of months. This is evidence. This is the advantage, and this is the evidence in front of us. So yeah, I think for anyone thinking about what's a pilot phase, I think that's a good summary of it. That is about just testing something and providing evidence on paper that to back up the evidence, that to back up your idea to see it will work or not. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And whilst you were introducing yourself, you mentioned you are currently doing a data apprenticeship. Can you tell us
Yeah,
what led to that and what you're hoping to get from it?
yeah. So yeah, it's an entry level apprenticeship. So what led me to that, I think, was the work that I've been doing over the last 3 years. So I've had Topol as well, but also been getting involved in quality improvement projects, audits, and things like that in my department, and kind of really wanting to make sure that that data is useful, and knowing, what statistical method I need to be applying to this, and how can I present it in a way that actually drives some change and some action. So coming to the realization that data is the love language of senior management and executives, and if you want something, you've really got to have some data to show them where the benefits are. So just kind of wanting to enhance skills there really, so that I'm self-taught really with a lot of it, so not starting from a point of being a complete beginner. It's things that I've picked up over the years, but just knowing what's good data, what's bad data, how do I present it to people in a way that's actually going to make something happen. And I guess the more that I've got involved in those QI projects and audits, and actually seen a change come out of the result of that data that I've produced, that's kind of inspired me to want to do more of that, really, seeing how it can start a change happening. Yeah.
And brilliant. Thank you very much. And I like your commitment to this and where you've taken it to, because I think a lot of times we think as nurses, we think our job or what we need to do just end with patient care and all of that. You mentioned something while you was talking about data is what leadership wants to see. They want to see, give me the evidence. If you say A and B is equal C, I want to see it on paper. And it's all about making data-driven decision making. It's about supporting those decisions to say, this is the data, and I know it's going to work this way because I've got I've got data to back it up. And I've sat in meetings where I could sense the frustration, or I could hear one of my colleagues sharing their frustration to say, right, I have this data. I'm not a clinician. It doesn't make sense to me. I need somebody who's a clinician to talk me through it. And because we don't have anyone to have the time, whose job title, like we said initially, to sit in that space, that data just sits there. And yeah, and I think what you're doing now, it's very important as nurses to have that skill to say, this is the data I need skills on to learn how to play with this data, to give me the insights, give me insights about it so that I can present it and make so as a department, as a team, we're making a data-driven decision, evidence-based decision based on the data we've gathered. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And I remember while we were chatting, we were talking about artificial intelligence and all of that. And we covered a little bit about the challenges introducing AI into healthcare at the moment. Do you want to just talk briefly about the challenges you encounter whilst you were working on this project, on your project?
Yeah, so I think the challenges are more around people's understanding of AI and its limitations. So what I found kind of when I was looking into what people do now for supporting language interpretation, obviously Google Translate featured really heavily. And I think sometimes we just open our phones, pull out this app, and use it without really thinking about it, and looking into it and seeing, well, how accurate is it? How do I know that what I'm inputting into this is actually making sense to the person on the other side of it? And I said before about kind of the data security and things like that. It's you wouldn't have a private conversation with a patient and then post it in Facebook Messenger or something, and it's the same thing. You agree when you use Google Translate that they're going to take data from it for it to learn from. So and I don't think there's always that appreciation of that, but I found even now that my colleagues are still reverting to using machine translation because it is so easy, but they don't always appreciate that the accuracy might not be there. So it's fantastic for non-medical conversations, absolutely, in a lot of languages like Spanish and things like that. It's great, and the accuracy levels are pretty high. But if you start trying to use it for a language that has a low level of resource for training the algorithm, the accuracy levels are really going to be impacted. And you've got no way of verifying what that translation is. But I think there is maybe a bit of a misconception that technology is infallible, and it's if I put this in and look what it's doing, it's amazing, it's interpreting what I've said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's mainly where kind of a lot of my research took me, was kind of those concerns about whether people fully understand the capabilities and limitations of AI, and as it becomes more prevalent, what issues is that going to create? And yeah, it's quite a big topic, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you said about AI. I think a lot of people I listened to a podcast recently from, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Dr. Jess Rose Morley. And one of the things she said is that a lot of us, especially as clinicians, we fall to the AI exceptionalism. We just think, oh, it's AI, it has to be perfect. But no, it's not. It's not, because, like you said earlier on, it's as good as what is trained on. Yeah, on what the data is trained on. If the data is not there, then the output won't be reflecting of your population and all of that. So yeah, I agree with you. And also we have this responsibility also as nurses to question that, to question like you're doing, to say why are we doing that? Is there a better way to do that? How safe it is? Where is that data going? Yeah, who is developing that software? Where is the data going to sit? Is my patient data going to be safe? I think beyond what we do clinically, I think when it comes to digital health or digital innovation as nurses, it's our responsibility to ask those questions, and also not just ask the question be in the way of any innovation, but to volunteer to say, okay, this is a challenge here. I can give you my time to look into this, all right? Because then we need our knowledge is very important in digital innovation. So thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. I'm conscious of the time now. The time is fast spent. So what I'm going to do now is just just give everyone the opportunity to ask questions. Yeah, so if you got a question, you can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself, and then yeah, please feel free to ask your questions now. No, is there no question for Lorna?
I've got a quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Lorna, I was just wondering, in terms of your future career plans, what are you going to stay in, sort of digital and informatics, or where do you think you might go?
So my aim is to I want to get more into the kind of clinical informatics side of things. The data is really, really what I'm passionate about. So that's what I'm aiming for. And kind of my learning and development is going to be very focused on that. So once I finish this apprenticeship, the next thing will probably be something else to do with data. And yeah, I guess I'm hoping that there'll always be a place for me in ED, because I really do think that there is a benefit, particularly for such I guess, a big department, busy department. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing, well, no one would be doing it at the moment. So I am kind of hoping that, over the next year or so, there will be more of a recognition for having these roles within departments, directorates, and things like that, rather than having them as whole separate departments. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm hoping things will go.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Olami Dotson, you've got your hands up. You can unmute yourself and ask a question, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tommy and Lorna. I don't have a question, just wanted to sort of say well done to Lorna, and how you explained that a lot of things was self-motivated and self-taught, and seeing the inefficiencies in data, and striving to actually do something about it. I currently work in occupational health, and I've been involved in a couple of digital projects, and I'm looking to transition into digital health. So hearing people talk about these things, actually motivates me as well. And I look forward to attending more of these webinars. And thank you, Tommy, for putting all of this together. And yeah, well done. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Yeah, it's you really do have to put yourself out there. No one's gonna discover you, or you've really got to be putting yourself forward and getting out there and networking, and getting your name out there, and showing people what you can do and what you're capable of. So yeah, good luck.
Yeah, thank you, Lorna. Any more questions? I'm just having a look, just to make sure I've not missed anyone. Or is there a question in the chat? You can put your question in the chat if you don't want to if you don't want to unmute yourself. You can put your question in the chat, and I'm happy to read it out. Okay. Right. I have a question, Lorna. So, and when the conversation around artificial intelligence and all of those intelligence things that people talk about, I just get very intimidated to say, oh my God, how do I marry my very biological, very pure science background to something like artificial intelligence? Like, where do I start from? I sometimes find it very intimidating. Sometimes I sit in the meetings where there's a machine learning engineer and they are talking, and I'm like, what are they talking about, for goodness sake? So as a nurse, what would you be your best advice to say, okay, I want to know more about this? How is the best way to start?
I think remembering that there's a lot of developments in AI in healthcare at the minute for kind of diagnostic support and things like that. But I think remembering that we've been using like AI probably for longer than we realise in some of the tools that we use at work. So recording an ECG, for example, when you get the printout, you get it tries to interpret it, doesn't it, and it'll put some information about the ECG on there. Obviously, as with most AI applications, it always needs a human input, and you need to obviously check it for yourself. But I think, I think a lot of nurses perhaps don't realise that they've been using AI without realising it for a long time. But I guess I've into the research that I've done, through Topol, because I've identified a problem that I thought could be solved by AI. So, I guess there's a lot of subspecialties within AI and a lot of different topics within it, and to try and learn about them all is too much. So I think if you have got something, in mind that you think, oh, I wonder how AI would work. I wonder if there's any AI tools that that fit within this of whatever it is that I'm looking at, and kind of start from there. Obviously we've got Siobhan on the call, we've got the AI Nurses Network, and lots of other networking groups as well, where you can connect with nurses that are working in AI, at a way higher level than I've done with my research. So, but I think, trying to approach AI as a whole from the beginning would be impossible and overwhelming. So I think, just sort of start with a topic that you're interested in, and just see what AI developments there are around that, and start from there.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it still goes back to what is the problem? Yeah, understanding the problem and sitting with that problem and trying to think about, okay, was a way forward with this, and just take it from the tiny bits, and not looking at it from the all overwhelming, massive, big picture, but looking at the tiny bit first. Thank you very much. And you mentioned about the AI Nurse Network, and I've got Siobhan here as well. So for everybody, anyone on this call who's interested in learning about AI and how you can apply it in healthcare, I would strongly recommend you to join the AI Nurse Network on LinkedIn. And I've learned so much from being on that LinkedIn group, and there are other opportunities to do short courses on there. Just go on there. There are links, and I don't know if Siobhan wants to say anything about AI Nurse Network while she's here.
Oh, thanks, Tommy. I don't want to take over the webinar,
fine.
But yeah, thank you for plugging it. Yeah, we just started before Christmas, so the end of 2024. So we're only up and running a couple of weeks. And yeah, as you mentioned, it's really just to try and give nurses a place to go to find resources on AI, get a little bit of education and support. We have a little bit of funding that's just closing this week, but we're hoping to run that every year to support small pilot projects on AI in nursing. And then we're trying to post as much useful resources as we can on the LinkedIn group and share. There's lots of AI stuff, as Lorna said, happening all over the UK. So share events that are happening and events like this, so that we can reach as many nurses as possible. And I definitely agree with Lorna. It's your own kind of curiosity, I think, should really drive what you do in AI, and don't be overwhelmed by all the technical stuff. You don't have to know that at all. Just get stuck in and learn as you go. That's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And I think that would I'm going to just round up today's webinar. Right, I think we've done this bit about questions. And the next bit on my slide is the networks that we have. And we've talked briefly about AI Nurse Network. There are other networks out there. So please take a screenshot, look at it, and just join the groups. Lorna mentioned that she found out about the Topol Fellowship because she just signed up for a newsletter, and that's how she got the information about the Topol Fellowship. So don't walk in silo or in isolation. Be a member of these groups, and that would definitely help.